then had the opportunity, I was elected to the Boys Nation, and for the first time had the opportunity to meet Senator Dole in Washington, D.C. when I went back there for Boys Nation, and remembered those experiences very vividly. And I really feel like that those experiences began truly my interest in the political process. I've been in the legislature for 35 years, and this is the 5th time that I've been through this redistricting process. For various reasons, I've been involved 5 times. We used to do this process in the second to the last year of the decade, which really didn't make a whole lot of sense because we were operating with census information that came to us by what was called, back in the late 70s and late 80s, the agricultural census. We never did use the federal census until finally 1992. The legislature in its wisdom decided that it might be a good thing if we reapportion in the second year of the decade instead of the second to the last year of the decade. So for that reason, this is my 5th time going through this process. Are we hooked up? Not yet. And I will talk specifically about congressional redistricting. I know that folks have a great interest in both the House and the Senate redistricting. Speaker O'Neill was very clear and accurate when he said that we have much more latitude when it comes to our legislative redistricting, and in as much as we have a 10% deviation factor, we can go a plus 5% or minus 5%. In congressional, it is quite true that we have to get as close to 0 as we possibly can. And as I said, I'll talk specifically about congressional redistricting today. First question that obviously comes to my mind is which direction will we take? Will we adopt standards and reasonable guidelines and adhere to those guidelines and put the people of Kansas first? And based on the 1962 Supreme Court case, Baker versus Carr, the Supreme Court told every state legislature that the most important principle in redistricting is one person, one vote. And that's why we have to come as close to that 0 deviation as we possibly can. Or will we gerrymander? And I show you here a cartoon that appeared in the Chicago Tribune last year. And you can see that the donkey says it works for me, because in the Illinois legislature, there's a great deal of gerrymandering going on. It just so happens that in that legislature, the Democratic Party has control of both the House and the Senate, and of course has the governor. And so there's a lot of gerrymandering going on in Illinois, unfortunately. What is gerrymandering? Well, the origin of the word was used the word was used the first time in the Boston Gazette on March the 26th, 1812. It was created in reaction to the redrawing of state Senate districts in Massachusetts under the leadership of Governor Elbridge Gerry. And he signed a bill that changed those districts to benefit his Democratic Republican Party. And when mapped, one of the contorted districts in the Boston area was said to resemble the shape of a salamander. The definition of the word is a practice that attempts to establish a political advantage for a particular party by manipulating geographic boundaries to create partisan incumbent protected districts. The resulting district is known as a gerrymander. And you'll have to forgive me for digressing here. I'm a U.S. history high school teacher by profession. So hence you're getting a little bit of a history lesson here. This is the political cartoon that appeared in the Boston newspaper in reaction to that state senate map that was favored by Governor Jerry. As you can see, it resembles somewhat of like a dragon to me, but it was described as a salamander, hence the word gerrymander, combining Governor Jerry's last name with the word salamander. Again, the question that I ask is, which direction will we take? Let history be our guide. 10 years ago, these were the two chairmen of the respective committees, Senator Atkins and then Representative O'Neill. You can see in Representative O'Neill's hand, he actually appears to be holding a congressional district map. This is a little trip down memory lane here. These were the adopted guidelines in 2002, and we have adopted these same guidelines for 2012. First and foremost, we have precincts as our building blocks. Deviation shall be as equal to ideal as possible. Plans will not dilute minority voting strength. Districts should attempt to recognize communities of interest, certainly when it can be done in compliance with the most important guideline, and that's number 2, one person, one vote. And finally, districts should be as compact as possible and contiguous, again subject to the requirement of one person, one vote. Guideline 4 is a very important guideline. We should try to recognize communities of interest. And in the guidelines, we also define exactly what a community of interest is. It involves social, cultural, racial, ethnic, and economic interests common to the population of the area. We should try to preserve the core of the existing districts, and whole counties should be in the same congressional district to the extent possible. So in 2002, we went through the same process that we're going through 10 years later. And I recall our first meeting was in Lawrence. And there was an overwhelming majority of conferees in Lawrence who wanted the city of Lawrence to remain whole and in the 3rd Congressional District. When we went to Manhattan, the concern there was to keep Riley, Geary, and Potawatomi counties together as an economic corridor or region, and to remain unified in the 2nd District. And finally, down in the southeast part of the state, in Independence, there were conferees there who favored Montgomery County being placed back in the 2nd District to unify that corner of the state. What was the outcome? Well, from my perspective, nearly every guideline was violated and public input was basically ignored when it was not necessary to achieve the ideal population deviation. And the outcome was a congressional map that, again, in my opinion, put partisan politics before one person, one vote. And the proposal so angered people, particularly in Douglas County and in the Riley, Geary, Potawatomi County area, that a lawsuit was filed. Our Attorney General then, Carlos Stovall, filed a lawsuit against the Secretary of State, Ron Thornburg. The federal court found that Ms. Stovall did not have standing. She was not a party of interest, but the fellow that's running the computer for me here today, Tim Graham, a resident of the city of Lawrence, did have standing. They made him the intervener